I still don't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe just an instinct I didn't realize I had. But one night, without any warning, I found myself standing outside my own house, watching through the window, completely hidden in the darkness. It wasn't that I didn't trust my wife, Tessa, but lately, there had been something off. A change in her demeanor that I couldn't place. She was home less and less, and when she was home, she wasn't really there. I'd asked her about it, but she'd always wave it off with a quick explanation, a distracted kiss on the cheek, and a promise that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I had to know for sure. I had been observing her, just for a few days, nothing too obvious. I'd started to notice the little things, the extra hours she claimed she was working, the phone calls she would take in private, the faint smell of someone else's cologne on her clothes. It all felt wrong, but I still didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that she was being dishonest. After all, we had been together for 6 years. There were no signs, no major red flags, but somehow, everything felt like a lie. So, that night, I took a risk. I parked a few blocks away from the house, well out of sight, and walked the rest of the way, careful to avoid making any noise. The house was dark except for a faint light coming from the living room. Tessa had mentioned she'd be home late, working on something important for her job. I hadn't expected to see her so soon. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching through the window, trying to see what I had missed. The darkness around me seemed to amplify the stillness of the night, every passing minute stretching longer than the last. My heart was pounding, but I didn't dare leave. Something told me that if I left now, I would regret it forever. And then I saw her. Tessa walked into the living room, her back turned to the window. She was holding her phone up to her ear, talking animatedly to someone. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could tell from her body language that it wasn't just a casual chat. She was leaning in closer to the phone, laughing a little too much, her eyes wide with excitement. I squinted, trying to get a better look. And that's when I saw him. A man stepped into the frame, standing just behind her in the doorway. He was tall, his face obscured by the shadows, but I could see enough to know that he didn't belong. I had never seen him before, and that didn't make sense. This was our house, our space. Tessa's eyes flicked over her shoulder, her smile deepening as she caught sight of him. She held the phone away from her ear and leaned in to whisper something to him. Something I couldn't hear, but could clearly see. The way she smiled at him, the way her fingers brushed against his arm. It was the kind of intimacy I hadn't seen in years. The kind of intimacy I hadn't shared with her in months. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't being paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. My wife was having an affair. My stomach twisted in knots, and for a moment, I thought I might be sick. I stood there, frozen, watching the scene unfold. My mind raced, thoughts colliding like a storm in my head. Why didn't I see this sooner? How long had this been going on? The man stepped closer to her, his hand brushing against her cheek, and my heart dropped. Tessa didn't pull away. In fact, she closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that burned my soul. I didn't need to see more. I couldn't. I turned away from the window, feeling like I had just been punched in the gut. My thoughts were a blur, and my body moved on autopilot as I stumbled back to my car. I didn't even know where I was going. I just had to get away from there. Away from the house, away from the woman I had trusted, the woman who had just shattered everything I believed in. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, the engine running, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I could still see the image of them together. Her, laughing with him, kissing him like she had never kissed me. I thought about going back inside, confronting her. But something stopped me. I wasn't ready for that yet. I wasn't ready to hear the lies she would tell me to cover up her betrayal. I wasn't ready to face the woman who had just ripped my heart out. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't know how things would play out, but I knew this much. Everything had changed. And I had no idea where I would go from here. But I had to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. The drive back home was a blur. I could feel my heart still racing, the sting of betrayal still fresh, as if it were a physical wound. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that maybe I had misunderstood what I saw. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. That kiss, the way she looked at him, it wasn't the behavior of a woman who was just working late, as she had claimed. I parked my car down the street and sat there, the engine idling in the cold night air. For a while, I did nothing but stare at the dashboard, trying to calm my breathing. I couldn't go back inside yet. I wasn't ready for the confrontation, but I couldn't run either. I finally took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. My hands were shaking as I walked back to the front door. I fumbled with my keys, still half expecting to hear her voice, see her face light up when she saw me. But when I opened the door, it was eerily quiet. Too quiet. I stepped inside, closing the door softly behind me, my heart still pounding in my chest. Tessa's purse was on the kitchen counter, her shoes scattered near the hallway, but there was no sign of her. I checked the living room, the kitchen, and even the guest bedroom. Nothing. She wasn't home. I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. She was probably still out with him, but she didn't tell me she was going anywhere. There was no mention of dinner or drinks or anything. She just disappeared without a word. I grabbed my phone, and before I even thought about it, I dialed her number. It rang twice before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know where you are, but we need to talk. I'll be home when you get back." I hung up and sat on the couch, waiting. It felt like hours before I finally heard the door creak open. She was home. I stood up quickly, trying to compose myself, but inside, my emotions were a whirlwind. She entered the room, her face lighting up when she saw me. But it was a different smile this time. Forced, like she was pretending everything was normal. "Hey, babe," she said casually, setting down her bag. "You're home early." I stared at her for a moment, not sure what to say. She didn't know I knew, not yet. And I wasn't ready to let her know just how much I had already pieced together. "Yeah, I got off early," I said, my voice flat. "I tried calling you, but you didn't answer. Where were you?" She froze for just a split second, and that was all I needed to see. There it was, the subtle hesitation, the guilt hiding behind her eyes. "I was out with some colleagues," she said quickly, walking past me toward the kitchen. "We were just talking about work stuff." I wanted to scream, to call her out on her lies, but I held myself back. It was almost painful to watch her act like everything was fine. I had to know the truth. "I see," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on, Tessa? Because I'm not stupid. I saw you tonight. With him." Her face went pale, and for a moment, she didn't speak. The air between us thickened, the tension so heavy I could barely breathe. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. "How long?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. "How long has it been going on?" She stood there, frozen, like a deer caught in the headlights. I could see the panic in her eyes now, and the guilt that was written all over her face. She couldn't lie her way out of this one. I didn't mean for this to happen," she finally said, her voice trembling. It just did. The words felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation. It was just an admission of guilt, a weak excuse. I didn't know what to say next. The anger, the betrayal, it all bubbled up inside of me, threatening to spill over. But I didn't want to yell, didn't want to escalate things into a shouting match. I wanted to understand, to hear her say the truth. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice low and steady. Her eyes darted away, and for a moment, I thought she might just break down and tell me everything. But instead, she just shook her head. "You don't need to know," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. That's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. She didn't feel bad. She was protecting him. I felt the room closing in around me, the walls pressing in as everything I thought I knew about our marriage came crashing down. I had no idea who she was anymore. Before I could say anything else, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there in the silence. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she had betrayed me, or the fact that she seemed to care more about protecting the man who had taken her away from me than she did about saving our marriage. I stood there, staring at the empty space where she had just been, and for the first time in years, I felt completely alone. What was I supposed to do now? I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My mind was racing with questions, but no answers. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Tessa, standing there with that man. The kiss, the way she'd looked at him, the intimacy in her eyes. I couldn't shake the image. The next morning, she was gone before I even woke up. Her side of the bed was cold, empty. There was no note, no text. It felt like she had just disappeared without a trace. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to her. The lies, the deceit. I couldn't focus on anything. Around lunchtime, I got a message from her. Just one sentence. "We need to talk when I get home." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen, my heart thudding in my chest. She wanted to talk? She'd been avoiding the truth for days, and now she wanted to talk? I couldn't decide if I was angry or relieved. Either way, I wasn't sure I was ready for whatever conversation awaited me when she returned. I spent the rest of the day pacing around the house, trying to distract myself, but I couldn't. Every minute felt like an eternity. When she finally walked through the door, I was sitting on the couch, my eyes fixed on the TV, but my mind elsewhere. She came in quietly, as if she was unsure of how to approach me. "Ben," she started, her voice soft, almost apologetic. She walked over to me, but I didn't look at her. I just stared ahead. "I know you're angry, and I don't blame you," she continued, sitting down next to me. "But I need you to understand something." I turned to face her, finally. My eyes were cold. "Understand what?" I asked, my voice flat. "That you've been lying to me? That you've been sneaking around behind my back?" She flinched at the harshness in my tone, but I didn't care. I was beyond caring at that point. "It's not like that," she said quickly. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I shook my head. "You think I'm stupid? I saw you last night, Tessa. Don't try to sugarcoat it. You're in love with him, aren't you?" She hesitated, and that was all I needed to know. She wasn't going to deny it. "Ben, please." She reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed bitterly. "How is this complicated? You've been lying to me. You've been sneaking around, kissing another man while I'm left in the dark." She looked down, her hands wringing in her lap. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. I don't know what happened. It was a mistake, and I didn't know how to fix it." I stood up, pacing the room. "A mistake? You don't get to call this a mistake. A mistake is spilling coffee on your shirt, not falling in love with someone else." She flinched at the harsh words, but I couldn't stop. The anger was overwhelming, and I needed to get it out. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice low and dangerous. "Who is this man that you've been seeing behind my back?" She didn't answer right away, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. "His name is Adam," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "We met through work. I never meant for it to go this far, but it just did." Adam. The name echoed in my head, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that my wife had betrayed me with him. "You never meant for it to go this far?" I repeated, the disbelief clear in my voice. "You didn't mean for it to go this far, but you're telling me you're in love with him, aren't you?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I can't do this anymore." Tessa looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. "Ben, please." "No," I said firmly, my heart shattering as I said the words. "You need to leave. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, who lies to me and sleeps with other men behind my back." For the first time in years, I felt nothing but emptiness. She was standing there, her face a mix of regret and disbelief, but it didn't matter. I was done. She didn't argue. She just stood there, tears welling up in her eyes. I could see the weight of her guilt in her expression, but it wasn't enough. Not after everything. Without another word, she turned and left the room. The sound of the door closing behind her felt final. As the silence settled around me, I realized something. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing that the person I had trusted most in the world had been living a lie, and I had no idea how to move on from it. The days that followed were a blur. Tessa had moved out, leaving the house feeling colder, emptier. I kept replaying the conversation in my mind, but it didn't make sense. I thought I'd be angry at her, maybe even hate her, but I wasn't. I was just numb. All I could think about was how everything I believed in had fallen apart. One evening, as I sat on the couch staring at the blank TV screen, a knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It wasn't Tessa. She wasn't coming back, and I had no intention of seeing her again. I opened the door cautiously, and there, standing in front of me, was a man I had never seen before. Tall, sharp features, his expression serious but not unfriendly. "Ben?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "Yeah," I said, my confusion growing. "Who are you?" He glanced behind him before stepping inside, as if making sure no one was watching. "My name's Michael. I'm here because I think you need to know something about Tessa." At the mention of her name, my stomach twisted. "What do you know about Tessa?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Michael hesitated for a moment, studying me carefully. "It's better if I show you." I didn't know why I let him in. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like he understood the pain I was going through. Or maybe I was just desperate for answers. Either way, I stepped aside, and he walked in. He sat down across from me, his eyes still studying me like I was some kind of puzzle. "I know what you're going through, Ben," he said quietly. "But you need to understand something. Tessa, she's not the woman you think she is." I wasn't sure how to react. I had already seen the worst of Tessa, the lies, the betrayal. But this man, Michael, was now throwing fuel on a fire that I wasn't sure I could put out. "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward. Michael took a deep breath. "I've been keeping an eye on her for a while. I work with her, and when I realized what she was doing, I couldn't just sit back and let it happen. But it's not just the affair, there's more to it than that." My mind raced. "What do you mean, more to it? What are you talking about?" He looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. "I'm not just here to tell you about her affair, Ben. I'm here to warn you. There's something going on with her, something darker than you know. And you're not the only one she's been lying to." I stared at him, my pulse quickening. "What are you talking about?" Michael stood up slowly, his hands shaking slightly as he pulled something from his jacket pocket. It was a picture, Tessa, standing with another man. Not Adam, someone else. My heart dropped as I looked at the picture. "Who is this?" I asked, barely able to speak. Michael's face was grim. "I think you need to see who Tessa really is before it's too late, Ben." I looked up at him, my mind spinning. This wasn't over. The lies, the betrayal, it was all much deeper than I had ever imagined. I had no idea what I was about to uncover, but something told me that the truth was far more dangerous than I had ever expected. I couldn't breathe. The picture Michael showed me, Tessa with another man, someone I didn't recognize, sent a shockwave through me. My mind couldn't process it. Adam was bad enough, but this? This was something else entirely. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice shaky but filled with a desperate need for answers. Michael took a long pause, his eyes scanning me, weighing whether I could handle more. "His name is Paul. He's someone from her past. Someone she's been hiding from you." I stared at the picture, trying to make sense of it. Tessa had been with another man, and from the way they were standing, so close, there was something familiar between them. Something more than just a casual acquaintance. "She's been seeing him behind my back too?" My voice was low, barely a whisper, but the words felt like venom as they left my mouth. Michael nodded, his expression grim. "I don't know all the details, Ben, but what I do know is that Tessa's not who you think she is. There's a lot she's been hiding, and I'm not sure you want to know the full extent of it." I felt the ground beneath me shift, like everything I thought I understood about my life was crumbling. My hands gripped the edge of the couch, and I tried to steady my breathing. I had thought I was angry before, but now it was something darker. A cold emptiness that gnawed at my insides. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Why are you telling me all of this?" Michael met my gaze, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. "I'm telling you because I think you deserve to know. And because I think Tessa's playing a much bigger game than you realize." He paused before adding, "She's been hiding a lot from you, Ben. And you're not the only one she's been lying to." A knot formed in my stomach. "What do you mean by that?" "She's not just involved with Paul and Adam," Michael said quietly. "There's a whole other side to her that you don't know about. Things she's been doing for months. People she's been talking to. Things that go way beyond just an affair." I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. This wasn't just about cheating. There was something far darker happening beneath the surface, something Tessa had kept hidden from everyone. Friends, family, me. "What are you saying? That she's been running some kind of secret life?" I asked, incredulous. Michael didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, like he was waiting for me to connect the dots. Then he dropped the bomb. "She's involved with people who aren't just after her for her time, Ben. These people have connections. They're dangerous, and they've been using her." His voice lowered, almost a whisper now. "I don't know how deep she's in, but it's not just an affair anymore. It's much worse than that." The room felt like it was spinning. My thoughts were a blur, trying to process what he had just said. My wife, my Tessa, was involved in something much darker than I had ever imagined. I had no idea who she really was anymore. Michael stood up, his face serious. "I'm telling you this because I think you need to make a decision. You can walk away from her, or you can get involved and risk your life trying to save her from herself. But either way, you need to know what you're dealing with." The weight of his words hung in the air. I didn't know what to do with them, how to react. Part of me wanted to walk away, to run far from everything I'd just learned. But another part of me, the part that still cared for Tessa, the part that was too blind to see the truth, wanted to save her. To fix this, I need more answers, I said, my voice trembling with frustration. I need to know what's really going on, and I need to know everything. Michael looked at me for a long moment before nodding. I can help you, but you're going to have to be ready for whatever comes next. Once you start digging, there's no turning back. I didn't know what was scarier, what I had already learned, or the truth that was still waiting to be uncovered. But one thing was clear. My life was no longer the one I thought I knew. It was tangled in lies, deceit, and danger. And if I wanted to know the full story, I had to dig deeper, whether I was ready or not. I spent the night awake, trying to process everything Michael had told me. Tessa, involved with dangerous people, hiding a life I never saw. It didn't add up. How could I have been so blind? The next day, I couldn't focus at work. My mind kept circling back to the picture Michael had shown me, to the strange feeling in my gut that told me I was only scratching the surface. I needed more. I had to know exactly who Tessa was really involved with, what she was hiding. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being dragged into something much bigger than a simple affair. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that Tessa wasn't just making bad choices. She was caught up in something deliberate, something that went beyond her control. That evening, as I sat at home, a message came through on my phone. It was from an unknown number. I know what you're trying to figure out, Ben. Don't trust Michael. He's not telling you everything. If you want the truth, meet me at the old warehouse by the docks. Midnight. The message was short, cryptic, and the tone was cold. I couldn't tell if it was a threat or an offer for help, but something about it felt real. Something told me that this was the next step in uncovering the truth. I didn't have a choice. I had to go. At midnight, I found myself standing outside the old warehouse, my heart racing. The place looked abandoned, dark, with only a sliver of moonlight casting shadows over the broken windows. I felt exposed, like I was stepping into the unknown. I hesitated before walking inside. The air smelled stale, like the building hadn't been touched in years. My footsteps echoed in the silence as I moved deeper into the warehouse, trying to shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then I saw him. A man stood at the far end of the room, his face barely visible in the dim light. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, waiting. I couldn't tell if he was friend or foe, but I was already too deep to back out now. Ben, he said, his voice low but clear. I'm the one who sent the message. I swallowed hard, my nerves on edge. Who are you? And why did you bring me here? The man stepped forward, revealing a scar running down his cheek, his eyes hard and unflinching. I know what's really going on with your wife. And if you want to understand the full picture, you need to hear it from me. I took a step forward, not sure what to expect. What does she have to do with all of this? And why do I need to hear it from you? The man paused, his eyes narrowing. Because Michael's lying to you. And you need to understand who you're really up against. This is bigger than you think, Ben. Tessa's not just caught up in an affair. She's been playing a dangerous game, and now you're part of it too. His words hit me like a punch. I wasn't just dealing with infidelity anymore. There were people involved, dangerous people who had already made me a pawn in whatever game Tessa was playing. I'm listening, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. I had to know. The man's eyes darkened. You need to be careful. You think you're looking for answers, but the more you dig, the deeper you'll fall. Tessa's already in too deep, and if you keep pushing, you'll be in over your head. I didn't know what to say. I had been hoping for answers, but now all I had were more questions, and a warning that felt like it was coming from someone who knew exactly what kind of danger I was walking into. I don't care about the danger, I said, more firmly than I felt. I need to know what she's involved in. Who is she really working with? Who are these people? The man's gaze softened, just slightly, before he spoke again. Tessa's not just running from her mistakes. She's running from them, and from the people who are hunting her. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Running from the people who are hunting her. The man's voice still echoed in my ears, and I couldn't shake the chill that ran down my spine. This wasn't just about a failed marriage or betrayal. It was something much darker. I took a slow breath, trying to steady my pulse. Hunting her, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What are you talking about? He stepped closer, his eyes scanning the shadows of the warehouse, making sure we were alone. You think this is just about an affair, don't you? You think Tessa's just been making bad choices, getting tangled up in some relationship nonsense. But she's involved in something bigger, something dangerous. And now you're part of it, whether you like it or not. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What exactly are you saying? What is she involved in? The man's face tightened, like he was debating whether to tell me more. You're asking the wrong questions. You want to know what she's doing, but the better question is why she's doing it. Why she's lying to you and everyone else. It's not just for love. It's for survival. His words were like pieces of a puzzle, but they didn't fit. The more he spoke, the less I understood. And the more I felt like I was losing control of everything around me. I need to understand, I said, my frustration leaking into my voice. Tell me everything. He took a deep breath, then looked me straight in the eyes. Tessa's been involved with people who are deep in the underworld. Criminals, mercenaries, people with power and influence you can't even imagine. And she got in too deep. It's not just about cheating, Ben. She's been playing a game where the stakes are much higher than you could have ever known. I didn't know how to process what he was saying. My mind was spinning. Tessa, my wife, she wasn't just someone I could confront about an affair. She was involved with dangerous people. People who weren't just playing with her heart, they were playing with her life. But why? I asked, barely able to speak. Why would she do that? Why keep it from me? The man's gaze softened, but only slightly. Because she was trapped. At first, she got in because of her work. She didn't know what she was getting into, but once she was in, there was no way out. These people, they have control over her, and they've been using her for years. It's not just about money or power. It's about survival. She thought she could keep it from you, keep you safe. But it's too late for that. I could feel the weight of his words bearing down on me. I had no idea who Tessa really was anymore. I thought I was just dealing with a cheating wife. But this was something much darker. Something I didn't know how to handle. Why are you telling me all of this? I asked, my voice steady, though my thoughts were anything but. The man's expression didn't change. Because you deserve to know the truth. And because you're in danger too. If you keep digging into this, if you keep trying to find answers, you'll be dragged into something you can't get out of. I took a step back, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do with this information? Was I supposed to walk away, leave everything behind? Or was I supposed to try and save her, save us, before it was too late? I don't know what to do, I said, my voice low. I love her. I still love her. But this is more than I can handle. The man nodded slowly. I get it. But love doesn't change the fact that you're in the middle of something dangerous now. And if you don't act fast, you might not make it out in one piece. The weight of everything that had happened, everything I had learned, was unbearable. The man's warning echoed in my mind as I walked away from the warehouse. Tessa's lies, her involvement with dangerous people, it was a mess, a world I had no place in. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized one thing. I couldn't keep running. I couldn't keep blaming her for everything that had gone wrong. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I spent hours thinking about Tessa, about everything she had been through. Despite the betrayal, despite the secrets, there was still a part of me that loved her. I couldn't just walk away, not without trying to fix things. One evening, I found myself standing outside her apartment, unsure if I should knock, if I should walk away, or if I should just let everything go. But I knew I couldn't. I had to confront the truth, face the mess we'd made. I took a deep breath and knocked on her door. When she opened it, the look in her eyes was one of surprise, followed by a mixture of guilt and relief. She hadn't expected me to show up, not after everything. But I wasn't there to yell or accuse her. I was there to talk, to understand. Tessa, I said softly, my voice shaking with emotion. I don't know what's going to happen between us, but I need you to know that I'm here. I'm willing to try and fix this. I don't know how, but I can't just let go without trying. She stood there for a moment, staring at me, as if unsure whether she should let me in. But then she stepped aside, and I walked in, closing the door behind me. I don't deserve this, she whispered, her voice cracking. I've hurt you, Ben. I've lied to you, and I don't know how to make it right. I shook my head. We've both made mistakes, Tessa, but that doesn't mean we can't find a way back. We've been through so much together, and maybe we've both been running from things. Our past, our fears, the truth. But I'm willing to face it all, if you are. Her eyes filled with tears as she stepped closer. I don't want to lose you. I don't know how to fix everything, but I'm so sorry. And in that moment, something shifted. There were no more lies, no more secrets between us. We both had our flaws, our mistakes, but for the first time in a long time, we were both willing to face them together. We spent the rest of the night talking, really talking, about everything. Her involvement with the dangerous people, the lies she had been forced to live with, the mistakes she had made. And as the night wore on, I realized something. We weren't beyond saving. It wasn't going to be easy. It was going to take time, trust, and a lot of effort, but we could rebuild. The next morning, when I woke up beside her, it felt like a fresh start. Not just for our marriage, but for both of us. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, and the scars of the past wouldn't disappear overnight. But we had each other. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. We weren't perfect, but we were willing to try. And that was all that mattered.